Thanks for joining us on Shannons Club TV. If you're a Shannons Club member or motoring enthusiast who's passionate about your cars and motorcycles, then this show is for you.
Motor racing historian Mark Oastler and I have been busy on the Shannons Club website, bringing you stories about cars in Australia never to be forgotten for their achievements on the road and in competition. We've had great feedback on these road and race histories, so we're now featuring them here on Shannons Club TV.
Okay, it's time to take a closer look at a model which enhanced the French reputation for building unconventional cars that performed beyond expectations. The Renault R8.
For way too long, Australians who needed a cheap and frugal four-door family car had to choose between an ageing Morris Minor or a Ford Prefect. But that all changed in 1963 when the rear-engine Renault R8 arrived. Renault had already had limited success with the earlier Dauphine, but it wasn't powerful enough for Aussie distances. The boxy R8 was a far more robust proposition with extra space and performance. It could cruise all day on the smell of an oily rag, had brilliant suspension for the worst Aussie roads, and disc brakes on all wheels. Back then you couldn't even get discs on the front of a Holden. The R8 was then quickly upgraded in 1964 with an 1100 engine, but the big news was the astonishing R8 Gordini. Mark, what was it about the Renault R8 Gordini that made it such a standout rally car?
Well, it just had all the elements you need for a standout rally car, really. It was light, it was agile, it was very strong, had a fantastic power to weight ratio, long travel suspension, four-wheel disc brakes, you name it. And with a rear engine, it had incredible traction. So the Holden dealer team really had no answer.
Yes, but you needed a driver with a fair amount of skill. As the Gordini established R8 credibility, Renault went from strength to strength, committing to local production in an ever-growing local facility. But then, just as Ralph Nader raised doubts about the swing axle suspension and other rear engine safety issues that applied to the R8 and its R10 offshoot, Renault replaced it with the front engine R12 in 1970. Yet the R8 Gordini's days were far from over. Mark, the R8 Gordini remained a Renault image builder long after the R8 ended. It must have been some car. Coming up, we'll meet a Shannons Club member and passionate Renault R8 owner, and get the latest updates from the Shannons auction team.
When Renault Australia decided to launch its all-out attack on the 1970 Australian Rally Championship, or ARC, it certainly had the right weapon in the R8 Gordini. Amédée Gordini was to Renault's R8 what John Cooper was to BMC's Mini. The Paris-based tuning whiz had already turned Renault's humble rear-engine sedan into a fire-breathing forest racer by extracting more than 100 brake horsepower from its 1.3-litre engine. The R8 Gordini also featured a 5-speed gearbox, extra driving lights, twin fuel tanks and reworked suspension. Renault Australia's 3 ARC cars were even hotter versions, thanks to the installation of factory rally kits from Europe that raised the power outputs from 100 to 130 brake horsepower, making these cars the ultimate Australian forest racers for 1970. Joe, it's interesting that Renault continued competing with the R8 Gordini into the early 1970s, given that the base R8 Renault was not sold here after 1966.
Yes, but they took the engine from the R8, turned it around and put it over the front axle of the Renault 12. So they still had a point to prove that this little engine was good enough to pull along a big Renault 12 and hang together. So that rallying campaign was very important.
Certainly did the job. Bob Watson and navigator Jim McAuliffe spearheaded a brilliant ARC campaign for Renault, with 4 wins and a second place from the 5 championship rounds, against the might of the Holden dealer team under Harry Firth, which entered both Toranas and Monaros that year. Renault not only defeated GMH in the manufacturer's points, but Watson and McAuliffe also topped the best driver and navigator tallies. It was a dominant performance by the French manufacturer, which also claimed the unique distinction of being the first and, so far, only rear-engine car to win Australia's premier rally title. Hope you're enjoying Shannons Club TV. Why not join the Shannons Club and share your passion for unique, rare and classic cars and motorbikes with other enthusiasts across the country? Keep up to date with the latest news, events and exclusive offers from Shannons.
My name is Peternesbit and this is my beloved Renault 8 Gordini. It's the R1135 model, that's the later version, and it goes extremely well. I purchased it back in 1974, so nearly 40 years ago, and at the time I was driving a Renault 10, which is a fairly docile sort of car, but one of my friends had a Gordini, and he took me for a spin one day, and from that point on I was sold. When this came on the market, I snapped it up as fast as anything. I'm an engineer by trade, and the sophistication of the Renault always intrigued me. It was developed by a very knowledgeable engineer by the name of Gordini, and I just loved the way the car was designed. And the more I got into it, the more I appreciated it. Driving it here today, it just brought back so many memories of all the fun that I've had in the car. Just the drivability, revving it out. I had to relearn my driving skills in effect to keep the revs above 3,000, but once you do that, it just sings beautifully. Very powerful for the capacity. It's extremely well balanced, even though it's a rear engine vehicle, and it can out-corner just about anything. And the speed out of the corners is phenomenal. In fact, that was one of the first things which appealed to me about the car initially. When the previous owner took it for a test drive, we headed for a corner at what I thought was basically suicidal speed, and we came out sideways on the other side of the road, and it was just brilliant.
Well, Chris Borrabon, Shannon's National Auction Manager, joins us. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hi, guys.
Chris, I think we've both got a soft spot for this R8 Gordini.
All three of us.
All three of us, yes. And I think when I was looking for one when they were new, you could never find one. And I suspect most of them ended up being rallied or destroyed. And we still don't see them. Where have they gone? What's happened to them?
We don't see them around, do we? But look, I think it's they tend to change hands in a club, amongst a club around Australia.
So there's a little bit of an inner sanctum where they swap hands. Yeah.
There's a bit of a following there in the club, and we don't really see them on the open market come up very often at all. I mean, we'll get the occasional call once in a while about the insurance side of it, but you just don't see them come up for sale.
Given the incredible competition history of this car, how much influence would that have on buyers in terms of an R8 or an R8 Gordini's desirability today?
Again, I think amongst the club people, absolutely. It's probably the holy grail of the R8 for them to have, especially the later evolution of the R8. I'd really love to see more of them out there. Hopefully with the internet over the last few years, that's opened up a few more doors for people to actually learn a bit more about the Gordinis.
Well, that's a very important point you make, because the car was not only successful in rallying in Australia, but in Europe. It was raced in South Africa. It was quite a glal performance car, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably more of the French colonies saw a lot of the R8 and the R8 Gordinis come through. And
So, Chris, if somebody knows where there's a reasonably untidy but complete R8, time to drag it out and do it up and get it on the road, do you think?
I think it is. It'd be a great car to see in some historic rallies or even some tarmac events around Australia. Yeah, very different.
If one did come up, we often talk about competition histories adding value to cars. Would that be the case with an R8 Gordini if it had a proven competition record?
I think so. To me, it'd be of a great appeal to see that. It would probably, fetch that extra 10 or 15% over a standard R8 Gordini.
Well, thanks for joining us, Chris, and keep in mind you can get up to date on all the latest Shannons auction news on the Shannons Club website.
If you'd like a lasting image of the Renault R8 in action, or many other Australian cars in competition, do what we do at the Shannons Club and log on to autopics.com.au, Australia's most comprehensive motorsport photo archive.
And if you want to read the full story on the Renault R8 or many other cars that we've featured at Shannons Club, you'll find them all here on the Shannons Club website. Joe, looking back, the Renault R8 really had quite an impact on Australian motorsport, didn't it?
Well, it certainly did, and not only that, it set a new benchmark for small family cars, and it won the very first Car of the Year award from Wheels magazine in 1963. And look what that started. We hope you've enjoyed revisiting the road and rally history of the Renault R8, and we'll catch you next time on Shannons Club TV.